Hey guys, Brandon Woldham with CCM Magazine. Today we are checking in with Natalie Grant. How are you, Natalie?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Good, good. So these past several months, it seems you've really been teasing us track by track on this new album, and we are finally just a few weeks away, about 6 weeks or so from that October 6th release date of
Yeah.
Seasons. And this one here, a lot of collaborations on this one, a lot of big name collaborations. And it's not just CCM. There's some gospel, there's CCM, there's country. What made you pick who you teamed up with on these songs for this project?
Kind of made a dream list, first of all, and thought, well, the worst that could happen is they say no, but the best that could happen is they just might say yes. And they just kept saying yes, which was blowing me away. Some of it just, like I think about some of the classic duets of CCM in the 90s, right? Like I listen to Another Time, Another Place, and I'm immediately transported to like Beauty and the Beast, right? You're like,
Mhm.
that's Peebo Bryson and Celine Dion. And in our genre, that was Sandy Patty and Wayne Watson. And I was like, man, whose timbre, whose voice would fit? So I love Jonathan McReynolds. So to him, that was an easy pick. I was like, his voice, he'll kill it. He'll be amazing. It was important to me to really incorporate a lot of gospel because that's really the music that I have loved growing up. It's been the most influential in my life, has been gospel music. So that's why I think you see a lot of that collaboration on the record. The Dolly Parton one, that's like a whole other situation. A whole other, like, sounds like it's a made for TV movie or something.
So when you started thinking about this album, did you originally want to have so many collaborations, or is it just you started asking people, everybody kept saying yes, and you said, well, I guess we're going to have a bunch of
Yeah,
collaborations on
you
this
know,
one?
it's funny. I think when you talk about a covers record, right? For lack of a better term, it's a covers record. And when you think of that, sometimes you think, especially if you're in the music industry, it's easy to kind of discredit a covers record. Like, oh, they have to fulfill a contract, or it's just an easy one to do to get them in between their, new material records or whatever. This is not that for me. Like, this is not just a covers record to fulfill a contract or to get me by until my next real record, right? This is like the record of my life. I am a product of Christian music. I grew up on Christian radio. Before I ever became an artist in this genre, I was a diehard fan of CCM and gospel music. It's the only music I really truly listened to growing up. I sang in my church from the time I was 4 years old. I would get my little high-low tracks at the Bible bookstore. So when you go back to 2020 when the world shut down, and my husband and I were sitting in our living room like everybody else in their pajamas, just trying to figure out how not to lose your minds, especially if you had kids and you're like, we've run out of games, we've run out of recipes, we've like, what do we do? And we were like, hey, let's do a song, and post it online. And back then I was like, let's just sing a song and post it on Instagram or whatever. And my husband, being a producer and a songwriter and very professional, was like, I've got to get the right mic set up and I've got to get everything like, hey, this is going to be great. Then we'll mix it. And I'm like, no, let's hit record on my iPhone. And he was like, that's going to sound terrible. And I'm like, that's kind of the point because nothing's supposed to be professional right now. But what happened is we started doing those songs, is that we had no idea, number one, that people would really um, connect to those in the way that they did. I think the last count was like 78 million people watched those videos, and we were not prepared for that kind of outpouring of support, right? But for me, what happened is every day I was going back through the Rolodex of my mind, going, okay, this song carried me through heartbreak in the 11th grade, or this song is the song I heard my mom singing in the kitchen, when I'm a kid playing in the other room, or this song. And I didn't do a lot of my own songs on those song a days. I was singing the other songs that were the soundtrack of my life. And that's really where the concept of this record came from, the seasons concept, right? And so when I first thought about doing it, it was like, well, yeah, I want to do this because I was reminded by going back about some of these songs that are the greatest songs of all time. And we have a new generation, like my kids, who love CCM and gospel music, but they'd never heard these songs. And there's certain songs that should never be put on a shelf. And I feel like I've chosen some of those. And it just felt like it would be a little bit more interesting to do them with some of the great artists of our genre. And so that's really where the concept, the idea to do collaborations, it's kind of where it came from.
Awesome. And tomorrow we're going to hear another one of those new tracks with CeCe Winans. Is this the final one we're going to hear before October 6th, or is there another teaser?
Sure there's one more. There's one more coming, but this one with CeCe, when I was 11 years old, she was on tour with her brother BB. That's back when it was BB and CeCe Winans. And I had been to one other concert before then. It was Sandy Patty with Second Chapter of Acts, if anybody knows who these artists are. But for me, that was like my mom's artist. And so I went with my mom, and I remember Sandy Patty was like an entertainer's entertainer. If you'd never seen her in shows, she sold out the arena in Seattle where I was. And I just remember going, oh my gosh, this is like legit. And I was like 6 years old. And then the next concert that I went to, like, it was the first concert I went to by myself, like with my friends, but not with my parents, you know? And CeCe Winans was like an angel. Like, her voice was like an angel. Her smile was like an angel. Like, when she smiles and you see those teeth, it's like a toothpaste commercial, you know? And there's just something about her that she just carries this angelic aura. I'm like, she literally is an angel on loan. And so she was the dream. To sing with CeCe was like the dream of my life. And it took me about 6 months to work up my nerve to text her. And just to give you some backstory, like, we're friends, you know, at least that's what she says. But I'm like, we're not like peers, CeCe. You're CeCe Winans. We can't just be like, we're like, you know, peers. It doesn't work that way. You are like CeCe. You're the GOAT. And so even though we're friends, it just took me forever to work up my nerve to just say, do you want to sing on my record with me? And she was so gracious and said yes. And then the day after she said yes, came back and said, hey, I don't think it's going to work out. I've got so much going on and I'm so sorry, but the timeline isn't working for me. And then I went ahead and did the song anyway. It's my tribute to God Be the Glory by Andre Crouch. And I had decided to do that song because that's a song that my mom and dad love, that I sang with my siblings growing up. This was before CeCe Winans just won Artist of the Year at the Dove Awards. And I don't know if you remember this, but she sang that as her acceptance speech. It's like one of the greatest acceptance speeches of all time. But she was like, that was her acceptance speech, was just singing To God Be the Glory. And then that for me was like, oh, she's definitely supposed to be the one that sings on this song. Like, that's a no-brainer. And then when she said she couldn't do it, I was like, oh, that's a bummer. But I went ahead and did it anyway. And then she came back like 6 weeks later and said, I've been waking up every day with you on my heart. And I was asking the Lord, you know, am I supposed to be praying for Natalie? Is there something going on? Like, you know, so I just was praying for you. And then she said, I so clearly felt God just kind of nudge my spirit to say, nah, I keep putting her on your heart because you said no when you were supposed to say yes. So she came back and said, can I still sing on it? And I was like, yes, you can. If you turned it on right now and I listened to it, I have not listened to it yet without crying because I just cannot believe that, like, my hero, my vocal hero, spiritual hero, like all of the things, is singing that particular song with me is very special. And I only had one rule. I was really bummed because I wasn't home when she came over to record the vocal with Bernie. I was on the It's Time tour, and so I couldn't be here. So I FaceTimed in so I could like be a part of their session. And I was like, I only have one rule, and that is the very first time anybody hears that chorus, To God Be the Glory, it has to be the voice of CeCe Winans. And so she agreed.
Love it. Well, we're going to hear that song tomorrow, the full project out again, October 6th. And I feel like there's a similar story about Dolly Parton that's very similar to the CeCe story, right? About how she became a part of it.
Yes, the two that were for me like bucket list moments. Yeah, Dolly, if people follow along on my socials, they would have seen that I posted about this. So I got booked to be the opening concert of the opening season of Dollywood this year. And that I was like, oh, that I'm so honored. Like I was the only Christian artist on the bill. And I was like, this is great. I'm so honored, blah, blah, blah. It was like a week before the show. And my manager gets a call from her manager that's first you're like, you're Dolly Parton. Like you don't have to ask permission. She was like, if it wouldn't trouble Natalie too greatly, Dolly was wondering if it wouldn't be an interruption, could she come sing a song with her? And my manager was like, it's called Dollywood. Yes, she can come and sing a song with her. So funny is we asked like, is there a song she'd like to sing, a song that my band should learn? And Dolly said, tell Natalie I want to do Just a Little Talk with Jesus. And I was like, I think that's like a really old gospel song, but I don't know it. Is there a version she likes? Or because my band was playing, right?
Mhm.
And she literally said, tell her it's the one in the red hymnal. I'm like, Googling like red hymnal, like what's that from? And I'm like, only Dolly Parton's like, tell her it's the one with the red hymnal. So she came and sang with me. It was a really special bucket list moment, but I'm thinking that's my Dolly story. Like that's my moment. This is amazing.
Mhm.
Well, I had no idea that after that, my manager reached out to her manager and said, hey, Natalie's remaking this song. I told this story on my socials as well, but there was a song from the Preacher's Wife soundtrack called Step by Step that was originally written by Annie Lennox, but kind of rewritten. Some of the lyrics of the verses and stuff were rewritten for the Preacher's Wife for Whitney Houston. And when I first moved to Nashville in 1996, and I moved here because I was getting a record deal and going to be doing music like everybody else who moves to Nashville, but I had to get a job at Medicare because it's the only job I could find, and I had to pay my rent and eat. And I had this beat up old Volkswagen Golf. If you went over 55 miles an hour, the entire thing started to shake, like when your steering wheel is vibrating. But it had a cassette player, and I would play Step by Step from the Preacher's Wife soundtrack every morning at 7 a.m. when I would drive from my apartment in Antioch to my job in Metro Center Boulevard down in Nashville. And I would sing that song at the top of my lungs, like, come on, baby, got to keep moving. Come on, baby. Like, it was like my song to like hype me up to go to my job I hated. So for me, that made sense, right? That I would do that song from that season of my life. And I was like, I wanted it to be kind of a girl anthem. Like, who else could sing on it with me? I didn't even dream of Dolly Parton. But my manager went and asked her manager. And her manager was like, oh, it's not a good time for Dolly. Like, Dolly's making her own covers record right now. It's called Rockstar. So that was in the works. She was in the middle of that. And so he came to me and said, oh, Dolly passed. And I was like, passed on what? Like, I didn't even know, And he said, oh, I'd asked her to be a part of Step by Step. And I said, oh, that would have been incredible. But I can't even be disappointed because I didn't know you asked. And then literally, I'm going to find it on here and show it to you since we're on Zoom. Literally like 3 weeks later, I get this email, and the email is a letter from Dolly Parton on Dolly. I'll see if you can, I don't know if you can see that. Let me see if you can, I'll try to clear it so you can, oh, is it not showing up? It looks white, doesn't it?
Yeah, we believe you.
I know, I'm trying. I'm like, the hot pink Dolly is so amazing. You can't see it. But it just literally, so I get off stage, I was on tour, and there's 17 missed calls from my manager. And he's like, why are you not answering the phone? I'm like, you're my manager. You should know I'm doing a concert right now. Check your email. So I checked my email, and it gotta put my glasses on because my eyes are too old. It just says, hey, Natalie, I just keep hearing that song Step by Step in my head. Have you found someone to sing on that yet? Is your album already out? Anyway, I will find the time to sing that song with you if it's still available. Please let me know because it's just so, so good. It keeps ringing and calling me back. And even if it's too late for me, it sure is a great song for you and a great song for the world. Love, Dolly.
Wow. So is that a letter that's now framed and like sitting with your Dove Awards and stuff?
Right. I'm like, this is like the coolest thing ever. I am framing that letter and maybe putting multiple copies around my house. I'm like, I don't know that there's a lot of people that have sung with Dolly. I don't know that a lot of people can say, but Dolly wrote them a letter and asked to sing on it. So the whole thing feels like a made for TV movie, but she is as gracious and as kind and as down to earth. And when I look at her, I go, I get the longevity piece, because when I was at Dollywood and she came for sound check, she knew everybody's name. She knew everybody backstage's name. She knew about their kids. And I'm like, this is why this woman, she understands people over position, people over process. And she taught me a lot, even just in her interactions with the people that work at Dollywood. But kind of amazing. And I'm blown away that now she's singing on a Whitney Houston song. When Whitney Houston did "I Will Always Love You," it's like it's all too beautiful.
Yeah. Well, when we look at this track listing of this album, we see the big names like Dolly and CeCe, and Torrin Wells is on there, Cory Asbury, and then down at the bottom we also see Bella and Sadie and Gracie. How did that come about? How did the daughters end up on this album?
So there's a great song by Bob Dylan, "To Make You Feel My Love." And there's a generation that doesn't know that that's a Dylan song. They think it's an Adele song. And so we were on a family vacation, driving in the car, and the girls were talking about how much they love this song by Adele. And I was like, you guys, this is not an Adele song. Yes, she kills it. She does an amazing version. But it's actually Bob Dylan. And so played the original, and I really can't explain it, but I'm sitting in the front seat with my husband, and the girls are in the back seat, and of course saying that they like the Adele version better than the Bob Dylan version, but still singing the song and singing the lyrics. And it gets to the lyric, I'd go hungry, I'd go black and blue, I'd go crawling down the avenue. No, there's nothing that I wouldn't do to make you feel my love. And I'm like, I know that Dylan did not write this as a mother to children, but that's all I could hear it as. And I start to cry. And my kids are like, Mom, what is going on? I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what I would say to you girls. Like, these are the words I'd say to you. And then I said, oh my gosh, wouldn't it be special one day if we like covered this song and Grandma sang on it? And then they started to cry. They were like, oh my gosh, I can hear Grandma's voice like on it. So we all were thinking, this was like back in 2019, like before any of this was even ever conceived. Then we decided to do this covers record, and it was the very last song. And I was like, what if, my mom's 83, she just was very ill. And I was like, what if I got my mom to sing on this track? So my husband actually flew to Seattle. My parents still live in the home that I grew up in. And recorded my mom in the basement of my childhood home. And then my daughters are all the pad of ooze in the background. It's like, literally, I think for any parent out there, they're never going to hear this song the same way again. You're going to be like, wait, I thought I knew that song, but now I'm hearing that song in a completely different way, and it's really special. It's really special.
Love it. Well, these days, it seems like we always eventually get a deluxe version of the album. Are you sitting on any more collaborations that we aren't going to hear on this?
Any more collaborations, but I can't say that I'm not already thinking about what seasons 2 is going to look like.
Love it. Well, last night you had a pretty big night. You sang the national anthem there on national TV at the Republican debate. Last year, you did it at the college national championship football game. We've all seen the little slip-ups and viral moments of people singing national anthems online when they miss a few lyrics.
Yes.
What kind of pressure does that put on you? Is there a lot more pressure singing the national anthem as compared to like one of your own songs?
Way more pressure. And even though I've done it so many times, last night I was like, don't forget the words, don't forget the words, don't mess up the words, don't mess up the words. I think just too, because I often do it a cappella, so there's no music to kind of hide anything. If there's like a bit of, it's like so exposed. I love singing the anthem. I do think it's one of the more difficult songs in the world to sing, but I love singing it. It's always an honor to sing it. Last night was such a privilege to get to do it. I knew it was going to make some people really happy that I said yes to do it, and it was going to offend some other people that I said yes to do it. And I was like, the truth is, I sang for President Obama when he was in office, and people got so mad at me for that, and other people were like, way to go. And then I sing it like, you're never going to make all the people happy. So I look at the doors that God opens and I walk through them, and I pray that I do it with grace and shining who he is, and that I don't make it about myself. And the anthem is supposed to be the thing that unites instead of divides. And it was like, there was a uniting moment, and then all those people started fighting. It was like, yep, and here we are, and here's the debate. But it was a privilege.
Sounds great. Well, you got a lot of chances for people to see you here in the fall. Multiple tours. You're out there with Bernie now, and then you pretty much go straight from that into the annual Christmas tour with Danny Gokey. So get those dates over on Natalie's website, and then we're just a few weeks away from Seasons coming out.
So excited. I'm so excited. The one time, and I know I'm out of time, but the one song that y'all are not even ready for is because they've never remade this song, and it's one of the songs I'm doing with the original artist. They've never remade this song because they didn't need to. It like just stands the test of time. But I don't know like a CCM gospel music person that doesn't have like a season of their life defined by the song Shackles. And to get to do Shackles with Mary Mary was like, oh, and the track, Bernie did it with the original producer, and oh my gosh, it is really good. And the Marys sound as good as they've ever sounded. So I can't wait for people to hear that one.
Love it. We could talk about this album for hours. I feel like we would both be getting phone calls that this has to end. So we'll have to cut it off now and we'll have to wait till October 6th to hear it all for real. So thanks for hanging out with us today, Natalie.
Of course. Thanks for having me. Good to see you.
You too.